Centuries of resentment and carefully nurtured rage boiled within Captain Taylor as the bridge crew made final preparations. Hidden in a dark nebula, the vast human fleet stood ready, their primitive M-drives and bulky generation ships now replaced by sleek cruisers outfitted with the latest grav-plating drives and exotic particle weapons. They had lost the first interstellar war 100 years ago against the amphibious Frogan Empire, who displayed no mercy in orbital bombardments of Earth and Mars. Billions perished as the advanced Frogan weapons vaporized cities in mere hours. Humanity's valiant space fleets obliterated by unstoppable salvos of plasma torpedoes. Only through ingenious stealth technology did scattered remnants of humanity manage to evade detection and slowly rebuild among the outer rim systems and rogue planetoids. All ships reporting ready, Captain stated his XO. The Frogan homeworld lies just beyond this nebula. Scans indicate only 24 capital ships currently in orbit over their planet. Taylor's face darkened, no doubt a ceremonial guard. They still see us as primitives cowering in caves. Today we show them how very wrong they are. Helm, take us out. Hundreds of sleek human cruisers slid from the swirling clouds, advanced holographic systems cloaking their approach. Taylor allowed himself a wolfish smile as his flagship's neutrino scanner displayed the ornate Frogan ships hovering arrogantly over their homeworld, oblivious to the amassed firepower at his command. Target the largest ships first. I want their leaders to understand this is retribution. Then saturate the orbital docks and shipyards, leave nothing intact. A chorus of acknowledgments came back. Taylor studied the glittering amber world displayed on the main viewer, its largely ocean surface riven by scattered islands and small continents. A world not unlike Earth, once teeming with an advanced amphibious civilization. No more. Today it dies. All ships opened fire. Blinding plasma beams lashed out simultaneously, easily overwhelming defensive screens on the huge Frogan command ships. Explosive decompressions tore massive holes in their bulging hulls even as secondary explosions finished the job, shattering the symbolic guardians of the Frogan fleet into twisted shards of metal. A mere 5 seconds later, the follow-up salvo hit Froga's orbiting shipyards and naval stations. Particle beams punched through meters of duralloy armor before erupting in fiery apocalyptic fury, vaporizing half-built ships and causing catastrophic chain reactions. Entire orbital rings became floating wreckage. Escape pods and lifeboats were obliterated before they could even launch. Taylor watched the slaughter with grim satisfaction. The once mighty Frogan fleet, now a flaming debris field. It was merely the opening act. Launch all drop ships and ground assault teams, he commanded. Burn their cities until nothing remains but glass and ash. A coordinated swarm of atmospheric craft descended into Froga's atmosphere through spaces suddenly cleared of defenses. As talon-shaped assault ships rained fire on Frogan population centers, they disgorged legions of hulking bipedal mechs, drop troops in powered armor, and autonomous drones bristling with weapons. It was now the Frogan's turn to experience the helpless horror of orbital bombardment and an unstoppable invading force. Hunter-killer drones swarmed ahead, ravaging all resistance with relentless machines incapable of fear, fatigue, or pity. Augmented drop troops followed behind, thirsty for Frogan blood and vengeance. And striding mightily over all were the Atlas mechs, vast engines of destruction piloted by the most ruthless veterans. Captain Taylor watched the unfolding destruction below with grim approval. Frogan satellites and data networks were corrupted with viral programs to blind any attempts at global organization or counteroffensive. Their vaunted standing armies were fragmented garrisons using outdated armor and weapons. Before this storm of advanced human war gear, they were pathetic, slaughtered in droves. Only the occasional glimpse of fleeing civilians and terrified Frogan hatchlings being cut down disturbed Taylor's righteous sense of long overdue vengeance. But he quickly suppressed those doubts. The Frogan conquerors had been utterly merciless during their invasion a century ago. This was still less than they deserved for humanity's dead. In under 48 hours, the surface of Froga was shattered beyond recovery. Smoldering craters marked where great population centers once stood. Strewn wreckage was all that remained of their industrial complexes and military bases. No corner of the globe had been spared from the fury of humanity's marauding corps of retribution. When the last Frogan command bunker was finally obliterated, Taylor was ready to implement the final retaliatory measure for his homeworld's suffering. Captain's sensors indicate surviving Frogan forces are launching their arcs, warned his XO. I'm tracking 20 slow-moving vessels rising from across the planet. Taylor made a cutting motion. Let them flee towards orbit. I want them to see firsthand the instrument of their final destruction before we exterminate them down to the last tadpole. He gazed up through the towering amphitheater viewports at the head of his bridge to where his flagship now floated, hidden in the darkness of space. A monstrous shape over 5 kilometers in length, shaped not unlike traditional depictions of death, now drifted into view as its cloak deactivated. Fitted along its spine-like dorsal structure was a horrifying armament no other race had conceived, a fully automatic Nicole Dyson beam array. Built secretly over decades within a hidden hollowed-out moon, the Titanic craft had the firepower to ignite or extinguish a star. Kept functional by legions of workers and automated systems, it was a weapon worthy of an insane god. The inhabitants of Frogan life arcs could do nothing but weep quietly as they beheld the engines of their imminent extinction. "Captain," came the final comm from Taylor's XO, even her disciplined voice unsteady. "All targets are in optimum position. Waiting your final command?" Taylor straightened in his command throne, raised a clenched fist towards the heavens. "On behalf of Earth and all humanity, I rain the ultimate sanction upon our enemies." He paused, seeing again the remembered faces of his long-dead brothers, mother, his beloved daughters. Dark Harvest Protocol is now in effect. Execute. Twin lances of invisible energy, subtle distortions revealing deadly graviton beams, spat forth across millions of kilometers. Where they intersected, their carefully balanced forces magnified exponentially before suddenly erupting into a perfectly spherical white fire. In an instant, the now-doomed star had become a premature supernova, unleashing a tide of high-energy plasma in all directions just before the arcs entered lethal range. Those on board the small Frogan craft never had a chance to scream before their arcs evaporated. Behind polarized, electro-tinted windows, Taylor stood unflinching as raging bolts of stray plasma washed harmlessly over the heavily shielded hull of his flagship. The star that once shone brightly on the conquerors of humanity was now a raging nebula, one which rapidly expanded to consume Froga itself. He thought of his wife and young daughters, their lives so brutally cut short, and decided even this was not just compensation. Yet it would have to suffice. These ancestors' ghosts must finally be allowed some measure of peace. As alarms warned of deteriorating orbital stability, Taylor turned to his silent bridge crew. "Take us home," he simply said. As the ravaged system faded to swirling embers behind them, he again faced forward, back towards distant Earth and the future